Evans started excavating near the modern village of Knossos. His finds of a sophisticated Bronze Age civilization astonished the world. While the ancient Greeks were living as barbarian warriors, these people were building magnificent palaces. Knossos was the largest Minoan city, a masterpiece of ancient town planning. Its temples and granaries were connected by the first paved roads in Europe, built more than 1,000 years before the Romans. The Minoan Empire stretched wide. Archaeologists have discovered settlements throughout Crete, as well as on other Aegean islands and parts of mainland Turkey. The Minoans shipped their intricate artifacts and pottery as far as Spain and Mesopotamia. They were masters of the sea. Their vast reach and influence rivaled that of the ancient Egyptians. Minoan artists produced the first great treasures of ancient Europe. This tiny gold seal is so small, it must have been created using some form of magnifying lens. This molding is less than an inch high, yet it contains a portrait of an entire Minoan town. Another masterpiece is the harvester vase. As Evans excavated the ruins at Knossos, he felt certain he had uncovered the palace of King Minos. He even imagined he'd found the royal throne. But Sandy McGillivray thinks Evans misread the evidence. He believes Knossos was not a palace, but a temple, carefully constructed to harness the magical power of the sun. In 2001, Sandy realized that each of these doorways aligns with the rising sun on different key days of the year.
What we're looking at here is the solar temple.
Like the Egyptians, the Minoans worship the changing cycles of the sun, moon, and stars.
What we have here then is essentially a theater of the senses. You can start off with complete blackness, and then you can fling open these doors at that moment of sunrise and experience that beginning of something new. And in the winter, the sun comes through on the winter solstice and illuminates the throne.
But it's unclear who sat on the throne. Evans believed it must have been a powerful male ruler, like the Egyptian pharaohs. But although there are myths about King Minos, there is no evidence of kings in Minoan art. Instead, there are celebrations of striking female figures, like this one found at Knossos. Sandy believes she may have been a snake priestess, perhaps part of a fertility order that wielded religious power and possibly also political influence in Minoan society. The Minoans left many tantalizing clues about their world. Their written language, called Linear A, has only recently been decoded. Surprisingly, it shares DNA not with other Mediterranean languages, but with hieroglyphs from the Persians in the Middle East. Sandy believes the words tell us far more about the Minoans than their art.
A decipherment for Linear A has given us a language for this Cretan civilization, which is akin to the early language of Iran, which found its way from the highlands of Iran all the way to India on one side and to Minoan Crete on the other side.
Their origins seem to explain why the Minoans were so different from the ancient Greeks who succeeded them. Their language and religion were more Asian than European. But it doesn't explain why 3,500 years ago, the Minoans disappeared. The island of Santorini, which lies 70 miles north of Knossos, is ground zero for the volcano theory. Today, the jagged cliffs and beautiful scenery draw countless tourists. Many fail to realize they are vacationing on a highly explosive volcano. In ancient times, it was called Thera. The Minoans built the thriving city of Akrotiri in the volcano's shadow. It was discovered in 1967, buried on the slopes of the vast crater. In its heyday, Akrotiri was as wealthy and highly developed as the settlements on Crete. Saffron was a valuable commodity in the classical world. It was prized as a spice and was also used for medicinal purposes. The Minoans documented the saffron harvest on their frescoes.
They were showing a nice lifestyle, a comfortable one. It's a pity it was all destroyed.
The Minoans had built their prosperous city on one of the most dangerous islands on Earth. Around 1600 BC, Akrotiri was shaken by a violent earthquake. Sometime later, the eruption occurred.
And suddenly, this thing exploded.
This was fire and brimstone of epic proportions. The huge volcano blasted gas, ash, and rock 25 miles into the stratosphere. Evidence of the volcano's power can be found all around Santorini. Some of the deposits are more than 100 feet deep. When the initial magma surge erupted out of the Theran caldera, it left behind a vast, empty chamber. The surface above the chamber collapsed, creating a gaping cavity. Then, the sea rushed in.
Magma and water do not mix. They make an explosion. The entire Aegean Sea is pouring into this vent, mixing with new magma coming up, and the explosion was tremendous, huge. And from that come these pyroclastic flows.
The destructive force was incomprehensible. The third layer of the deposit is a 33-foot wall of ash from a single flow. Above it lies the fourth and final layer.
It started to rain. Torrential rains came down. And then all this loose ash and pumice on the surface started to move down slope. That's what we call debris flows. And then it was over.
The thriving Minoan settlement on Santorini was buried under the huge mounds of ash. But did the eruption also obliterate Crete, 70 miles to the south? Floyd and his colleagues found ash deposits on the seabed surrounding the island, certainly an ominous sign.
We calculated the amount, the volume of this material, which is how we figure out how explosive an eruption was. It came out something like Krakatoa. Wow, we said.
When Krakatoa, the volcanic island that lies between Java and Sumatra, erupted in 1883, the explosion was heard 2,000 miles away. The volcano claimed 36,000 lives. But if Thera was that powerful, there should be widespread evidence of its eruption. And there is. A search turns up Theran ash 500 miles away in the Black Sea.
striking observation that I've made, just talking to people, all over the world, I mean, when it comes to tsunamis, whether it is, Nicaragua, or whether it is Sri Lanka, or whether, it is in the Philippines, they tell you about the noise. Tsunami comes in and, they tell you that it sounds like, some people say, like falling rain. Others tell you that, it's like an airplane landing. This impression, what you hear time and time again, irrespective of where you are, the feeling is that this is the end of the world. It's not even a question of being scared. The moment that you see the tsunami, most people freeze. I'm trying to think, how would the Minoan have reacted to this phenomenon, which is, these people loved the sea. They worshipped the sea, and here is the sea that's turning against them. Once they come up on the hill and they look back and they look at the destruction, how can they ever go back and live in the same place? It's probably cursed.
There are no written records of the Theran tsunami, no figures for the death and destruction it caused. But the 2004 tsunami can give us some idea of its devastating impact.
The Minoans are so confident in their navy that they're living in unprotected cities all along the coastline. These were the major population centers. That's where people are living. Now you go to Banda Aceh, and you find that the mortality rate is 80%. If we're looking at a similar mortality rate in Crete, that's the end of the Minoans. He's made of ivory tusks, gold. He has a serpentinite head, and he is one of the great masterpieces of Minoan art. His cuticles are even carved. He's given pulsating veins. The sculptor wanted him to be alive.
The attention to detail was astounding, and the statue was magnificent by any standards. But it was in terrible condition when it was found. It had been badly charred, shattered, and scattered around the building that housed it, both inside and out.
This was a valuable piece. Anybody who had this in his possession would have been rich, but they did not care. They wanted to destroy the statue. Somebody picked up the statue from its base and brought it outside. He took the statue and smashed the face into probably this side of the wall, and made the stone hair fall and have the torso and the arms drop in front of the steps of the shrine, and threw in the legs in the burning house.
This was more than a random act of vandalism. It was ritualized violence against a powerful symbol of Minoan culture.
They really went for the face. And so we see that in all different kinds of civilizations, Egyptian or Roman, when they go for the face, there is something symbolic involved. They want to destroy everything this statue stood for.
Additional signs of such deliberate destruction have been found in other places on the island. At Hania in western Crete, an excavation at the heart of the modern town has revealed evidence of ancient arson.
These are the stones that are in such a condition because of the strong fire.
The hallmarks of fire are clear, but the cause of the blazes is still being debated.
These are warrior graves. They are single burials, something that is in opposition with the traditional Cretan Minoan customs. They have the age of between 24 to 30. They are tall, robust. They look to be invaders.
Similar bodies have been found near Knossos as well. Their weapons were not Minoan. They resembled those used by the ancient Peloponnese Greeks.
They have a lot of weapons, long swords like the ones that are in Knossos and in Peloponnese.
The invaders from the Greek mainland slashed and burned their way across Crete, overwhelming the weakened Minoans. Sandy McGillivray believes the tsunami not only left the Minoans ripe for an attack, it gave the Greeks an important military advantage.
Their traditional homeland is on the southern shores of the Gulf of Corinth. Tsunami cannot get into the Gulf of Corinth. To get into there, you have to go all the way around to the west through a little narrow opening. So the Mycenaean Greeks up there are probably the only people left, maybe even in the Eastern Mediterranean, with a navy. This is power.
Within a generation of their arrival, the Greeks had completely conquered Crete. The last embers of Minoan culture flickered out.